Okay, everyone, we're back. The government doesn't want you to know about the honk it horn.
It's just confirmed.
It confirmed the government doesn't want you to know about the honk it horn.
You gotta know about the honk it horn.
And it killed my phone as I attempted to record my
It definitely wasn't us talking for an hour and 25 minutes.
My phone battery lasts longer than this. It drained my phone battery via its satellites so that I couldn't finish telling you about it. But I plugged my phone in, so joke's on you, the government, because I'm going to finish explaining
It's ours now.
We, the people, will know. And so he's saying essentially like, oh, you can have her. You know, and then he says that, and then he throws the porcelain doll onto the lap of the man who was sleeping in the armchair. And the armchair guy looks at it and is disgusted and then throws it down. And I believe the first man picks up his little stick figure guy on the way out.
No, he doesn't.
He leaves it? Oh, okay. So at that point, me and Jake foolishly were like, that's interesting, and changed the channel.
Yes, as fools.
As fools, believing that we'd be able to find this movie again if we ever needed to. And of course, the next day, we're both like, what the fuck was that movie we saw? Because that's such a bizarre sequence of events.
And mind you, part of the reason why we don't remember anything was because we were joking through it.
Yeah.
We made a joke that the stick figure man was the man's
Blue-Eyes White Dragon.
Blue-Eyes White Dragon. He threw down to fight the doll.
Right.
And all these jokes. And then afterwards, we were like, what was that? And no matter how hard we tried, trust me, I not only did you look, I also looked, and I typed in a bunch of different ways to describe the events of the scene. Mm-hmm. And there was nothing came up. Nothing.
I've looked on the website for that channel to see if I can go back in their schedule and like find what the schedule was for that day, because I can find the date that we watched it. And they don't have a backlog of what was on that channel
so we'll never
anywhere.
know.
So we have no way of finding this. So this is our personal cryptid, is the Honk It Horn, a cursed movie that me and Jake weren't supposed to see that we saw.
So like we joke about it, we made a joke. Cameron made a joke poster of it. But like the more I think about it, like the weirder it is that this movie just came and there's like no way for me and Cameron to track it.
Yeah, and because it was such a strange sequence of events that we saw,
it was just odd.
Yeah, very strange movie. So if we ever release this episode and one of you is able to identify the Honk It Horn, for your own safety, don't. And throw it away. You shouldn't know what you know.
It is forbidden knowledge.
Forbidden 100%. Knowledge.
100%.
And we told you about that first part with the John Travolta people because we've decided that that's part of... So for those, just to keep you in the update, as well as this being a legitimately weird, creepy thing that happened, it is tradition for me and Jake to come up with our own cryptids.
Yes, 100%.
Especially around Halloween. We've had several of our own homegrown cryptids.
I would like to give some because they're fun.
They're fun.
The original one, the spooky North Adams skeleton.
Yes, who was, depending on who's telling us the story, either in all versions, it is a living skeleton.
Yes, an alive skeleton.
An alive skeleton that is stalking the streets of North Adams. What changes depending on who's telling the story is what happens. Some people claim that it's looking for skin.
Some people.
And is trying to take your skin, and that's what it's doing. The more common version of the story is that it will see you, and you will see it, and you will be terrified, and a vat of acid will open up behind you, and it will very lightly push you in. And that's what the spooky North Adams skeleton does.
Yes, that is 100% what he does.
Yes.
He just pushes you lightly into a pool of acid that has appeared behind you.
Yes. So he was very scary, and he lasted a few years.
He did. We got a lot of mileage.
Out of the skeleton. We still talk about the skeleton.
The reason is because after we stopped living in North Adams, we still went back to visit occasionally, and around Halloween.
Yeah. So
it would be us pretending to go and hunting the skeleton.
The skeleton. That was our reason that we would give for coming back to North Adams for a weekend. And then once we stopped going there, because the people we were visiting weren't there anymore either, we had to come up with a new one. And now this one was a 100% original character by Jake.
Yes, by me and my significant other. We went camping out near my area. And we were out there, and on the way to there, we got some last-minute supplies at the dollar store, which one does. Mm-hmm. And we went in, and it was where it was in time was the end of the summer. And so all of like the middle of summer party stuff was on clearance because it wasn't that time of season.
Mm-hmm.
And on there was a bunch of tropical stuff, and there was a giant like classroom like cardboard thin cardboard cutout thing with like mildly opposable pieces of it. Red macaw.
Yeah, like a parrot. For those of you that aren't aware.
Yes. So like the traditional parrot on your shoulder kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I again, as I mentioned, I'm really into birds. Of course, I must have this simply because it is a bird.
Right.
And of course, I bought it for $1. And so we brought it with us camping. My significant other loved it. And we set up the tent and everything, and I put him on the tent. Physically on the tent, there was like a little hook that was definitely for like hanging the tent when it was collapsed and put back in the bag, back in your home. And I used that, and I had one of those clips from my backpack that I wasn't using, and I clipped him to the tent, and he was on the tent, and it was our decoration for the tent. And I named him at that point Camp Counselor Claw, because he was going to be our camp counselor at our beach time late summer event. And we had a good time with Camp Counselor Claw. And the day passed, we did our camping stuff, and then we went back into the tent at night, and we were relaxing. It was dark, and then it was very dark because it was cloudy at night that night, and then the clouds left and the moon appeared, and it appeared, and there was a lot of light, and we were laying talking, and I was looking at them, and they were looking at me, and the light went through, and then I turned around because I was moving to adjust my position, and I see outside the door to the tent a figure, mildly humanoid looking figure, and it was just there, and like it looked like it was hunched into the tent, and it freaked me out. I was like in a moment like really terrified, and I like grabbed my significant other, and they looked up, and because they had just seen it too, and then they leaned in and whispered very quietly, "What is that?" And I looked at it, and then I really looked at it, and as I went from the top, and I started following it down, and I see a branch and little tiny Pete's holding the branch, and it was Camp Counselor Claw. And so me and my significant other busted out laughing because it was the birds scared us so bad, and so for like a half hour straight we pretended to cower in fear of the shadow we were seeing, and we were going,
but by night it is no longer Camp Counselor Claw.
Well, we named him that because of what we were doing, and we were standing there like, he peeping, he's peeping, he peeping, and we were just doing that over and over again, and like way quiet voices, really loud quotes, he peeping, and we did that for a half hour straight. And so at night, Camp Counselor Claw changes. He transforms into the black, terrifying mass known as He Peepin'.
And so He Peepin' was last year's Grand Cryptid. Quite terrifying. Caused Jake to be in a car accident, which was more than the Skeleton ever managed. He Peepin' was terrifying.
Oh my god, it was great.
It was great. And so that was last year's Grand Cryptid. And so we were expecting that this year we were really going to have to pull out the stops and come up with something very funny. And then, sure enough, the Honk It Horn came along and he was actually creepy. And so we have a real this year's Cryptid.
The Honk It Horn. The haunted film.
The haunted, cursed film that me and Jake should have never seen. And so the official mythology around the Honk It Horn is that this weird sitcom channel people yelling John Travolta spoke the forbidden words, John Travolta, and then did a summoning dance.
Yes, which is his Saturday Night Fever dance.
That was not his Saturday Night Fever dance.
They were attempting to do
Was it?
that.
No, that was something weird. They did a weird dance, and then the channels started to get all fuzzy because they were summoning the honk it horn. And now we've seen it, and who knows what will happen.
Whom knows?
So that is what we have to say about cryptids, I believe. Do you have anything else, Jake?
I have literally nothing else to add because we cracked the case.
Yes.
With the honk it horn. Cryptids are real. Hashtag Rodan confirmed.
Cryptids are real. Alert the media.
Yeah, we have to tell everybody.
We have to explain the honk it horn to as many people as possible before we're killed.
If you never hear this, if No Words Apple Juice does not become a big podcast, it is because the government killed us for knowing about the honk it horn.
Regardless of whether or not we continue to make episodes, if No Words Apple Juice doesn't become famous and we don't have celebrity guest stars, it's because the government killed us because we knew about the honk it horn.
Even though we're continuing to make episodes.
Don't believe that part. Unless you really like the show and you want to send it to your friends and donate to our Patreon, then believe that it's us. But we're only not successful because the government killed us.
Exactly.
All right. So what's your recommendation this week, Jake?
Oh, you go first because
you got to think.
I've had a time.
Okay. So I will go first because I know what I'm gonna say. Hello. Do you remember a time when you enjoyed reading, but now the horrifying, crushing adult problems of depression and anxiety make it difficult to focus on a large block of text for long periods of time? Good thing comics are here, because now we can read without allowing the existential dread to creep in, because we're looking at funny pictures at the same time. My recommendation is not just for the general idea of comic books, however.
I was sold.
Right.
Comic books? I don't think that causes violence.
So the spooky season is more or less upon us. It begins in September, as far as I'm concerned. It is September now currently, and so I'm ready to go into a light Halloween season. And so something I have always enjoyed doing around Halloween is reading something creepy, reading something spooky. Just the feel, like, as much as I like horror movies and all that stuff, there's something special and specifically cozy and autumny about curling up under a blanket on a nice day and just reading something creepy. And like I said, it's difficult for me to focus on just reading normally anymore, just because there's a lot of shit going on in life and it makes it difficult to focus. And so this year, I have come across the Dark Horse Book of Horror, which is a collection of not just one spooky story, but many, many spooky stories. The Dark Horse Book of Horror is actually... and it actually has the skeleton on the cover. I'm looking now.
It's true.
It's got the skeleton on it. And it's got a boy on the side, Jake, just for you. There's a big old raven on the side. And so it is a collection of several books that Dark Horse put out, which were in themselves collections of horror comics. It collects the Dark Horse Book of Ghosts, the Dark Horse Book of Witches, which I'm a big fan of, the Dark Horse Book of the Dead, and I believe that the last one is going to be the Dark Horse Book of Monsters, but I haven't gotten that far yet. And these comics are fantastic. They're very short by nature, and so the existential dread will have no time to creep in, because by time it would get to that point, you're already on the next story and you're getting reinvested. And you get a really good sampling of original stories. You get some Hellboy comics in there. There's some comics from a sort of lesser-known title called Beasts of Burden, which is about a bunch of suburban house pets that are essentially paranormal investigators. I fucking love that series. So you get some Beasts of Burden stories in there. And just in general, the range of what the stories can be about and the tone is so varying that it's just entertaining. Like, one of the stories is about this girl, and she's babysitting her little sister, who's just a complete shit, and the little sister doesn't want to go to bed, and so she runs outside, and the older sister's chasing her, and they run past their neighbor, this old woman's house, and the older sister happens to look in the window as they run past, and they see the old woman getting railed by several demons. And so sister's
my
like,
God.
whoa! And they go, and then she catches the little sister and brings her inside. And the next day, she sees the woman in like the marketplace, and she's like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm sorry that you saw me look into your window last night. Like, I did not mean to do that. I was chasing my sister." And the older woman's like, "Listen, you witnessed a very personal moment between me and some guests, and now those guests are all you're ever going to be able to see." And she essentially curses this girl with like just horrific visions of demons. And the older sister's like, "Please don't do that. Let me explain." And she explains what had happened and like that she was chasing her younger sister. And the witch is like, "Okay, so in that case, I'll give you the ability to pass this curse on to your younger sister because it was her fault." And so she sends the older sister home with the knowledge that she can either be granted the vision of horrific demons and be blind to everything else for the rest of her life, or give that to her younger sister, who is kind of a bitch, and also be probably tutored to be a witch by this older woman who likes her. And it like perfectly encapsulates the sibling feeling of my younger sibling is such a monster and I hate them, but also I will not allow them to be cursed by a witch. And so that story is really good. And then there's other ones, like there's one about this dog that's been hit by a car, and it's this really interesting, like, just the dog talking about the days that go by where it's in a ditch dying, and like, it's much less of a downer than it sounds by me describing it, because it's just like,
I was about to say,
it's not that much of a downer. It's just really interesting about death, and like, it talks about the dog and like how it's like what is happening with its body, and also like the people that are passing it on the road, and it'll go and do snapshots of their lives and how they're affected, and the person that hit it even, and like was like a trucker and he didn't know what it was, and like he tried to go back and find it, and then we see some of his life, and like it's this very, very weird, almost like experimental just story about death and life. And I like that I can read that literally like 6 pages away from a story about a girl accidentally seeing her neighbor getting fucked by several demons. And that's why I am recommending the Dark Horse Book of Horror. It is on Amazon for relatively cheap. It's a very attractive looking book, so it'll look good on a shelf when you're done reading it. Wildly entertaining, fun, spooky fun for the Halloween season.
I'm glad. That sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
I might have to look into that at some point. We'll
Yes.
borrow it from you or something.
Yes.
Well, for me, it's hard to do the recommendations in the usual format because I very recently restarted school, and so I've been out late at that and then working all day, and so like my only time at home has been dedicated directly to Fire Emblem Three Houses, which is what I recommended literally last time, which is my hyper focus right now. I can say though that very recently, a couple days ago, I did get a comic book in the mail that I am intending to read. So I'm going to recommend this series because it's a continuation of the series I'm reading. It's called Star Wars: Age of something, and then Heroes, Villains. So essentially, what it is there's as of this recent time. Disney is rebranding the timelines of Star Wars as all the prequel stuff and anything related to the prequels is called the Age of Republic. Anything after Revenge of the Sith and before
Return of the
Jedi. It's like, with a little leeway forward and back. Is the Age of Rebellion, and then everything from leading up to The Force Awakens and then The Force Awakens after is the Age of Resistance.
I was reading about this a little bit today.
Yes, and so to match with that, they released 3 sets of 2 comic books for each age, one for each age, and then heroes and villains for each age. So the ones I have at home already, before I got this one that was mailed, was Age of Republic, Heroes and Villains. Those were really good.
Which characters were they about?
So I was
Okay.
about to say. So the Heroes one follows each of the main characters. This is the one I'm in the middle of reading, so I haven't finished this one. So it starts, and I just started it. So it starts with Qui-Gon. And he's having this kind of thing where he is protecting somebody who is a queen of this forest. And on this planet, the planet is divided between people who believe in technology in the future and people who believe in nature. And they're like have a blood feud because the tech people want to level all nature to get at this rare resource that the planet has that helps them make all this fancy stuff. And then that resource also has like strange properties that makes the forest very beautiful and natural. And they defend the forest, and so Qui-Gon has to like negotiate this thing while making this forest lady understand, because she like thinks that all the metal people are evil and satanic and stuff, and so he's trying to make her see why they're doing this, and also understand like you can still be mad at them and all this, but you still have to respect them as people. You can't just say they're dirt.
Right.
So it's interesting, and he like it's about Qui-Gon and his unique. The major part of the story is him meditating about it, and he has a Force vision, and it's about Qui-Gon's unique take on the Force and his not hyper focus, but his focus on the living Force as his thing, which is different in Star Wars than the cosmic Force, which is everything. The thing that Obi-Wan talks about in Episode 4 about the Force that surrounds you and penetrates you and holds the galaxy together. The living Force is actively in like it's that energy that is created by each living thing, and then adds to that cosmic Force. And that living Force is more potent in the moment and lets you see things that are happening. And it's really cool. And they talk a lot about that. And then the next one I'm reading is about Obi-Wan, and it's Obi-Wan feeling inadequate about being a dad to Anakin. And it's a really nice, heartening story between those two. And the one after that, I just finished the Obi-Wan one, and I don't